Hey team, want to do a quick video about non-Canadian resident sales. So we talked about this at the last sales meeting and wanted to do a short form video to help address questions as they come up. So it's kind of one of those double negative things, so it can be a little confusing. So this is where someone is a non-resident of Canada for income tax purposes. And so this would be someone who lives and for income tax purposes is in another country, and whether it be United States, India, somewhere in Europe, or somewhere in Asia, but they're a non-resident in Canada for income tax purposes. If they split time, spend a significant portion of the year somewhere else, it matters where they file their taxes because it relates to CRA. So it's awesome to see. We're starting to see a lot more direct international investment into Edmonton, both investors and buyers moving here. So that's awesome for our market, but there's some things you need to be aware of. So let's talk about sellers first. So if you represent a seller and they're a non-resident for income tax purposes, as a seller, they might have lived here before, but now they've moved and now they're selling the property, or they've been a foreign-owned investor. The Canadian government requires a clearance certificate by the lawyer handling the sale for the seller in order to proceed, and that has to be processed by the seller's accountant who's filing that for them. So it's based on their tax filing situation, if they've depreciated or not, what their carrying cost is on that property. Until you've received a clearing certificate, 25% of the gross sale price needs to be withheld. So if you're selling it for 400 grand, they're holding back 100 grand. Even if they have a $350,000 mortgage on that property, they're still going to, and there's 50 grand in equity, they're still going to hold back 100 grand. So that seller could actually be in default and unable to close without the clearing certificate. So be organized at the listing stage. Ensure adequate time based on CRA's current processing timing. And the best way you're going to get that is talk to their accountant. The accountant should be familiar with some of these laws already, if that's who they have helping them, being a non-resident, filing their taxes here. But if not, you can recommend a good accountant for them that knows what they're doing, and make sure their lawyer has the heads up as well. Given the situation, you put them in touch with the lawyer. So what about non-resident purchases? So when they're buying, there's a few key points. So recommend they get in touch with the Alberta-based lawyer. So if they're buying property in Alberta, they need an Alberta-based or registered lawyer, and who's going to handle the closing. Get them in touch right up front. They'll address any issues specific to their situation. And then the biggest second thing is getting the money into the country. So often banks are under different restrictions depending on which country the money's coming from, etc. FINTRAC rules apply as well with large sums over 10 grand. So they may have to have a longer holding period. We've heard upwards of 30, even 60, 90 days where that money needs to be held prior to them being able to close. So if they say, no problem, I'm buying cash, I have all this money, then they close the deal and you're supposed to close in 3 weeks and find out that that money's being held for 45 days before it'll clear in Canada, they're now in breach and can't close the deal or have to try to renegotiate. The second main point to that is if they are getting financing. So you should talk to the mortgage person that you're working with this client, but make sure they're registered in Canada too. We've had the occasional one where they say, yeah, no problem, I have my bank in the States who's going to help me with Canadian mortgage. No, they can't. It's totally separate laws and entirely different registration systems, so not possible. It has to be a Canadian bank, a Canadian mortgage specialist, or Canadian registered mortgage broker. A lot of lenders, most, require 90 days history on the money. It's for FINTRAC compliance as well. So that money needs to be sitting clear in the bank account for at least 90 days prior to the close date, at least prior to funding. So make sure you leave enough time on those deals and you won't run into the problems that we've sometimes been seeing happen lately. So as always, that's what we're here for. If you have specific questions, client situation come up and you want to clarify, reach out, we'll help you navigate. But those are the major pitfalls and strategies to help with non-resident sales. Talk soon.